Hey there, YouTube crew. Today we're talking about cause and effect and the way smart people view cause and effect, as well as the daily space and earth weather. Say hi to Ricky and Bubbles. And pull up a chair, pull up your coffee. I'm going to grab a beverage while I rant about cause and effect. So here's one. I caused a tiny bit of muscle fatigue, and now I want to replace muscle glycogen by consuming a sugary beverage, following a lovely nature stroll through the Bob Rodale swamp. So the swamp is all full because of recent rather heavy rains, and I like to stay on top of what the watersheds are up to. So I'm always aware of like how high the creek is and so on because of my excessive use of trails. I use trails, shall we say, a lot, like daily. No, literally daily. And cause and effect. Smart people never deny cause and effect. Smart people don't assume that they know a thing that they definitely don't know. Crick or creek? Yeah, good question. Barbarian 1111. So cause and effect, they're they're undeniable. And why is that? It's because accountability always comes, folks. Accountability always comes. So it doesn't matter how many billions of dollars you have, accountability comes for you too. Whether you have billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, millions of dollars, thousands of dollars, or trillions in debt, accountability always comes. So there's no avoiding it. You know, one way or another, you are accountable for things that you do. Uh, I spent many years with the denizens of the schools I occupied with IQs above 130. And none of those people, none of those classmates who had IQs above 130 were in denial of cause and effect. We all verified cause and effect instead. Did stuff like study aerodynamics in 6th grade and do projects about it. And so, yeah, cause and effect, it's kind of important. And that's why I'm consuming a sugary beverage. If you think I'm a Zionist because I'm drinking a Coke, you might be nuts. Um, so, yeah, sugary beverages. They're the ultimate way to replace muscle glycogen. Because when you use muscle glycogen by doing physical efforts, the best way to replace the muscle glycogen is sugar. Your body makes everything into glucose anyway. So if you're trying to get a fast recovery, what we do is we consume sugar as well as during extended hard efforts because it's the only way to fuel the hard efforts effectively. This is why things like bike races keep getting faster because of advancement in the understanding of nutrition. So a lot of people out there are spooked of sugar. High fructose corn syrup isn't dangerous, and neither is sucrose. Regular old table sugar, not dangerous. The optimal mix is actually half glucose powder and half sucrose powder. However, they both work almost the same. So after you've fatigued your muscles, what you don't want to do is go into muscle glycogen debt, which is a longer biological and chemical process than simply consuming sugar, in which place the glycogen gets right into your cells and your muscles don't get fatigued in the first place. So there's a reason why the vast majority of Tour de France cyclists prefer Coke as if they had to pick just like one energy drink. Coca-Cola is super good. It calms people's stomachs, and it's like Barbarian 1111. You don't have to whine about the Coca-Cola. Like the Soda's not dangerous to people who burn a lot of calories. If you have a sedentary lifestyle and you never do a thing resembling exercise, then a sugar-free lifestyle might be the lifestyle for you. But those of us who do extreme athletic things all the time, we need sugar in order to both fuel those efforts and recover from those efforts. Because as I just stated a few minutes ago, you need to replace muscle glycogen rapidly after hard efforts. Otherwise, you go into muscle glycogen fatigue and you waste a bunch of energy doing a thing that shouldn't be costly. So, and this is cause and effect. Cyclists do things the way that we do them because they work. And the reason that bikes are built the way they are, and the reason that cyclists do the things that we do, is because they're the things that work. And so those are the things that we do because they work. You see, cause and effect. Consume sugar, have less muscle fatigue and faster recovery, and be better at sustained hard efforts. It's necessary. It's like the, this is like this is not dangerous, folks, especially if you're an athlete. Now, don't try it at home, kids. This is just novelty information. I've been a living billboard, aka a pro cyclist, since 1999, and so like sugar isn't bad for you unless you don't burn the sugar. What's bad for you is excess blood sugar sitting around in your system for extended periods of time. So you shouldn't eat a giant bag of candy while sitting around. But if you know you're burning 100 calories while you're sleeping every hour. So there's that. And of course, if you are an elite athlete, you have to maintain your weight. You don't want to just have your weight just fluctuating all over the place in order to accommodate your training, because that's not healthy. Weight fluctuations are bad because they cause huge blood pressure swings, because your blood volume changes, especially when you're an endurance athlete. So if you're like coming off of winter being out of shape and you're going to get in shape, one of the things that happens to a lot of endurance athletes right when we get on top form is that we gain a couple of pounds. Why? Because blood volume increases. Like, this is a known thing. So anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to rant about cause and effect because there are a lot of folks out there that don't seem to believe in cause and effect. They think cause and effect is some kind of fucking, like a fictional thing. I mean, but guess what? Accountability always comes. It always comes, folks, for everybody. Whether they have, like, for whatever they're doing, like, it's coming. It's coming. It might not look like it's coming, but it is. For example, folks who talk nonsense on YouTube and cash in their credibility. Channels that are getting hundreds of thousands of views and talking utter nonsense about whatever topics. Accountability's coming because people don't like to be tricked. The reason why people are easier to trick than they are to convince they've been tricked is because of their ego. And that also makes them prime for vengeance when they discover that they've been tricked and they must leave whatever cult they've joined. What is this? Frank Gaffa 6120. Here's What makes you think I don't like hot dogs? What are you talking about? I mean, give me an all beef Frank and a steamed roll and some chili cheese and some hot mustard all day. Some kraut. Like, you must be new to the channel, Frank, because there are videos in our Ownage Food and Drinks playlist that have artisan hot dogs. So that's nonsense. So here, cause and effect once again. You've caused me to talk about whether or not I like hot dogs, which, you know, they're not the best, but, you know, sugar's not dangerous, folks. Sugar's dangerous to sedentary people who have huge amounts of sugar in their system for extended periods of time and don't burn it. That's the issue. That causes inflammation and it causes all kinds of issues. So, anyway, we'll get to space and earth weather here in just a moment. I just have to finish my Coke and switch to coffee. You know, Coke and coffee actually go very well together, as well as Pepsi and coffee. They both, cola and coffee go great together. If you were aware of that, I'm not sure, but they don't seem to conflict with my palate. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I prefer the coffee black because I just ground these beans this morning and it's spectacular. I do drink organic coffee because I don't trust coffee companies to not have pesticides on their products. So, you know, I try to pick organic coffee. I always buy organic coffee, actually. And I get it on Amazon. You know, full disclosure, we do have an Amazon storefront. We are an Amazon affiliate. And so that there are links on the homepage to it, I believe, at smashomash.com. And let me just bear with me here as I chug a sugary beverage after doing like, I don't know, 1.2 mile hike. I've earned my 140 it's only 140 calories, folks. Are you aware that, so it's the sugar content here is 39 grams of total carbs, and it's all sugar. Tour de France athletes and, you know, World Cup cyclists, they consume about 100 grams of sugar. So they got to drink 3 of these every hour approximately in order to hit their caloric demands and keep riding at the extremely high paces that they ride at. So just so you're aware of that, about 100 grams of sugar per hour is the standard for the world tour. Frank Gaffa 6120 says, and I'll read your comments because the one about hot dogs was great. Credibility is overrated. Just turn over and eat another Twinkie. That's what half of America say. Yeah, that is what half of America say. That is, yeah, true. That is dementia. Exactly. America says, every boot you can lick, I can lick better. I can lick any boot better than you. No, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Go read any ridiculous argument on Feces Book, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube comments. A bunch of tribal cult types are saying, every boot you can lick, I can lick better. I can lick any boot better than you. So, I don't know why that is. It's like, this thing is bad until our dear leader does it. Then it's good. This thing is bad. Like, shattering the economy is bad until our dear leader does it. Then it's good. Because reasons. And by the way, my criticism of the U.S. government goes back to the year 2001. Because the president back then who signed idiotic laws was called George W. Bush. Okay, when 9/11 occurred, I was like, uh-oh, the economy. And it's only gotten worse since then. Not better. 100% worse. The Patriot Act made the U.S. into, like, what? The Patriot Act. Yeah, it's... How is it not overturned by the Supreme Court via the Fourth Amendment yet? Like, what? It's crazy times. So, but with all of that aside, with all of the lack of enforcing existing laws, with all of the lack of representation, with all of the taxation without representation, with with all of the fraud and all of the crime and all of the grifting, like, the main issue is economics. Because if the economic issues aren't solved, then all of the other stuff is a moot point. Because it's all going to crumble. It's all going to crumble. Like, we were telling our viewers, Hey, have you seen silver prices? Remember in March of 2020 when the whole market crashed, but silver prices never spiked? And I was like, yo, silver's $12 an ounce, y'all. We've seen a 10 times increase in the price of silver. Do you get that? What that means, folks. Silver is the canary in the coal mine. Ask Peter Schiff if you don't fucking believe me. Silver is the canary in the coal mine, and here's why. When the price of silver moves a lot, and it's moved an order of magnitude in 6 years. In 6 years, less than 6 years, in 5 years and change, silver prices have moved an order of magnitude. That means that institutional investors have run out of safe havens for their cash. So when they try to sideline cash, they're like, oh, I better put some of the sideline cash into some commodities. Silver prices have been over $120 an ounce. So think of the implications on the US dollar. Okay? Is that good for other currencies? No. But the US dollar has recently reached 4-year lows in the currency index, in the US dollar index. So, like, the implications of bad, idiotic, dovish monetary policy, and what I mean by dovish monetary policy is encouraging the Fed to lower interest rates. That stuff disproportionately harms the poor and elderly. Should I say it again? It causes inflation, and inflation disproportionately harms the poor and elderly because the poor and elderly have less ability to survive in the first place. So when the amount of money in their checking account goes down in value, you see, people don't understand the difference between price inflation and monetary inflation. And this is a problem. People think that the CPI is a lagging indicator of what prices have done. That's why it's the consumer price index. It's not consumer price inflation, is it? Because it's not inflation. Inflation is when your dollars lose value. That's inflation. So when more dollars get injected into the dollar supply, the way it works is via lending and bond purchasing. When more dollars get appeared out of thin air by banks, what happens is the other dollars in circulation lose their value. And there really isn't any mechanism by which to measure the amount, like the dollars in circulation, I think is a mystery. Can anybody verify that in the comments? Like, does somebody keep track of how many dollars are in circulation? Because, I mean, you may know what fractional reserve banking is and you may not, but when you give a bank $1, here's how the bank does its accounting. The bank considers your dollar to be its dollar because reasons, and then the bank loans out $9 based on the dollar that you've deposited. And then it claims that the $9 are also its dollars, and the interest on the $9 are already its assets before they're collected. This is how bank accounting works. If any other company did that, it would be criminal. But banks all do that. It's called fractional reserve banking. And I mean, China actually recently changed its fractional reserve requirements, like to make inflation, China basically raised inflation by allowing banks to have even less reserve cash on which to lend. All right, anyway, I'm not going to get into it because most people who are going to view the video don't understand it anyway. So it's like whatever, like bad monetary policy disproportionately hurts the poor and the elderly, 100%. Because the CPI is nonsense and it is manipulated constantly to try to reflect the inflation rate that the central banks want. So if the central banks want a 2.5% inflation rate, they're going to move things in and out of the basket of products, goods and services that is, in the CPI, the consumer price index, in order to reflect the inflation rate that it prefers. And banks think that an inflation rate of 2% is better than an inflation rate of 1%. And it's because banks directly profit from the inflation rate because it reflects their lending. Anyway, but I digress. So the sun has been dropping in activity. If we did get a CME impact yesterday, like just after the stream or during the stream, it certainly wasn't big. We did have an M-class solar flare, and that was nice. I mean, it happened during the stream. It was like, that was like the sun leaving a comment right there, where I was like, hey, you're going to, like, the most likely place to see a flare is over here in the eastern portion, because I looked at the magnetic fields and could instinctively tell, like a bodily function, that that was the place likely to have a solar flare. See, it's called predictive value. So once again, cause and effect comes into play here, because our videos have predictive value about space weather. We forecast incoming space weather. We'll forecast things like what sunspots are going to do. We forecast flares. We forecast CMEs, coronal mass ejections. And like, what we don't do is claim to forecast things that aren't forecastable. That's just pathetic. So we show weather forecasts. I explain the way weather actually works. Ah, yes. My muscles appreciate it. And now when I ride the bike, I will have like zero fatigue. I mean, I burn more than 140 calories by doing my off-road, partially off-road hike through the swamp, you know, although it wasn't very swampy because most of the swampy portion, you're on a lovely elevated wood decking trail. So it's just fantastic. But anyway, so yeah, the sun's been actually declining activity. And so that means we're all going to die. Oh, I forgot my coffee. Damn it. Well, I'll make sure that Microsloth is running here first, because you never know. It could take like a half an hour for you to boot your PC. And I think mine's already booted though. So that's a good thing. Oh, thank God. The thing's already running, so perfect. So I'm going to grab my coffee, pull up a chair, pull up a beverage, let us know what your favorite beverage is, and I'll be right back. The 304 angstroms wavelength, I would say that's the house second favorite wavelength. And what do we got? We got some big prominences there on that southeastern limb, which will be your screen lower left. And any more big flares? Well, let's see the solar wind first, shall we? All right, so did anything hit yesterday? And the answer is not really. So that stealthy CME impact from the Luke-Lamperti filament, it doesn't look like, nope. There is no clear signal there, so I think that one would have missed to the south. I didn't even see it show up in any of the models, but sometimes everybody's sleeping on the forecast. So these things do indeed happen on the regs. Like I was saying yesterday, we have about a 30% margin of error with everybody who has any predictive capability when it comes to space weather. So whether it's Tamitha Skov or the ESA or the NASA or NOAA or whoever, everybody has about a 30% margin of error. So, you know, and this basically fits in. Like this does not like throw our record of space weather forecasts into disarray. It's like, this is fairly normal. I mean, we pick up hits that others miss regularly, and we miss hits. We predict more misses than we miss hits, if that makes sense. So, you know, like, and also keep in mind that NASA and NOAA forecast differently. Okay, so NASA NASA has astronauts in space. And so NASA really needs to know when to tell people that you may have to hide in a radiation shielded room. Okay? Whereas NOAA has to deal with a ton of satellites. So it's a very different thing that happens when space weather happens to NOAA. NOAA forecasts a lot more stringently. NOAA is much less likely to forecast a geomagnetic storm than NASA is, because NASA has to protect human lives in space. It's not the same process as NOAA, which is primarily concerned about protecting satellites. So it's a very different scenario, and the amount of work required to protect those satellites is super high. Whereas with astronauts, you just have to tell them to get into the radiation-proof room. In fact, there's somebody watching this at NASA all the time, believe it or not. So anyway, I forget who it is, but I think I follow her on Twitter. So here's our house favorite wavelength, and let's yeah, more flares coming from that same sunspot. So if we look at that, and I think we didn't look at this yesterday, another M-class flare has happened today, quite recently. Nice, very nice. Looks like a double pulse event. So yeah, that sunspot remains the one where you can expect to see flaring and so on. So let's take a look at some more stats here real quick. What are the magnetic fields looking like? It's still beta gamma class down there. Still beta gamma class, but this has degraded since yesterday. So this is actually a less complex sunspot now than it was yesterday. So that's the SDO magnetogram. Here's the SDO continuum of that same group. You can see the main umbra there is about the same size as the Earth. So anyway, there's the SDO's HMI instrument. No need to talk about cosmic ray flux today. Let's check for CMEs. According to University of Reading, any new CMEs? It looks like there was a diffuse one there. So that looks like a forecast for a CME impact, but a really minor diffuse one. Check it out. Right there. University of Reading expecting an impact on the 19th. So on Thursday. On Thursday late in the day, so sometime after midday, a minor CME impact forecasted by University of Reading. As you can see, it's very diffuse, so not very dense. Looks like it's moving kind of fast, maybe up to 800 kilometers per second. And then there's going to be a pair of coronal hole streams behind it. So we could have co-interactive regions here. Hopefully we do. And I see some more comments. Let me, I'll put those on the screen if they're not crazy. Hopefully you leave sensible comments, and we trust that our viewers do. Of course, we've got some pretty skilled viewers in the realm of space weather. If you've been watching the channel for a long time, you're probably able to forecast it pretty well yourself. That's kind of the goal, and hopefully you can forecast your Earth weather by now. It's super easy. Anyway, the current conditions for solar wind are pretty nominal here. So a BTBZ of 5 nanotesla with a BZ of -1, and we've got a very diffuse solar wind that only about 1/3 of a proton per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed here declining to about 450 kilometers per second. That's the yellow line. And that is measured by the ACE, shown by this green orbital display here. It orbits Lagrangian point 1. And what do we have here? What's next? NOAA's forecast. Is NOAA forecasting a CME on the 9th? Well, indeed it is. Yeah, so there you go. CME headed this way for the 19th. Gotta love it. I certainly do. Although it looks like it's going to be daytime for the U.S. So, but maybe early in the morning we may see some here on the east. Well, maybe the rest of you, who knows? Hopefully we see some mid-latitude aurorae from that. But it looks like it's going to be a short-lived CME impact based on the way University of Reading modeled it. All right, so I see a number of comments here. Hey, shout out to Bruce Minas. Barbarian says, but are you in debt? The answer is zero. Zero debt. Absolutely nothing. I'm paying interest on nothing. Nothing. So yeah, that is one of the things that if I had debt, I would probably snap. I would probably become a hermit and move to a cave if I had debt. God Gaming YT dash S2H says, hi bro, this is game. Okay. Thanks for the info. So yeah, CME impact coming. You gotta love it. Oh, and you gotta love that ad. Global seismicity level low. We haven't had a 7+ magnitude earthquake since the 22nd of February. And if you look at the whole 90 days there, what is that, 90 days? The past 90 days, pretty low levels of activity there. So are we overdue for an earthquake? Let us know in the comments what you think. By the way, the magnetosphere is super calm right now. We don't have any kind of space weather impacts happening. The magnetosphere is quite silent. Solar wind density is extremely low, so we've got just a very evacuated space. So when that solar plasma shows up on Thursday, you can expect it to be a big signal. It's going to be a solid impact because, well, the solar plasma sweeps the space out of plasma. So if you don't have a bunch of impacts for weeks and weeks, the CME impact or coronal hole high-speed stream can be muted by all the plasma that's been piling up in between the sun and Earth. But if you have an impact and then another impact, it tends to be a really clear signal. So anyway, some more solar stats for you here, like sunspot number and the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, which has come up a little bit here to 111 solar flux units. Sunspot number coming down. So that's interesting. Sometimes these things do diverge a little bit, as they have here. Sunspot number coming down to only 62 sunspots or something like that. 62 sunspots, I'll say, is the sunspot number according to the King's Royal. So here's this CME. Okay. What's up with that? So I think it's that one. But we're going to look at stereo A. Oh, actually, let's look at the other coronagraph because maybe it's back to functioning today. Fingers crossed. So yeah, I think the earlier one, which is actually the CME that we covered in yesterday's video. I mean the flare associated CME that we covered in yesterday's video. I think that's actually the one that is causing this incoming plasma. And the one that goes off to the north, I don't think that's the same one. But let's just look at stereo A here. That's going to give us a lot better idea. And give that a minute to load. Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. So it looks like some missing data there, but at least we get the initial part. So yeah, the initial CME was very earthly directed. Earth would be off to your left over here where my arrow is from stereo A's perspective. So yeah, that's a good one. Check it out. It's a significant CME there. So it looks like it's going to be high speed but short-lived according to the modeling from University of Reading. So it'll probably last less than 12 hours, I suspect. But it looks like high speed, so expect it to be like 700 kilometers plus for the solar wind speed when that does arrive. It should be a great solid signal, including both a density and a velocity spike. This is where planets are located, and there is absolutely no predictive value for anything with where planets are located. That's astrological trash. So this idea that you can somehow forecast what Bitcoin's going to do or something because Mercury's in retrograde or because it's a crescent moon, now you should focus on beer fermentation or some other nonsense like that. The location of planets does not mean jack. Like, there has to be plausible physics for a thing to cause a thing. This is why we say cause and effect, matter. This is like, it's really easy to prove pseudoscience is pseudoscience. Because with pseudoscience, if there's absolutely no way to even test the theory or hypothesis or whatever crap it is, then if there's no way to test it, then it's not science. It's pseudoscience. And when people use a bunch of buzzwords to try to sound smart and say, look out, y'all, it's an unprecedented alignment. Oh yeah, it's an unprecedented alignment. You know, these planets have only been doing this for billions of years, right? There's an unprecedented alignment. Like, absolutely pathetic that anybody takes this astrology shite seriously. It's very, very deranged. And I mean, let me remind you that the human knowledge to available knowledge ratio is at an all-time low because we have access to more information than we've ever had. New information is constantly coming out, and people are certainly getting dumber. Prove me wrong. No solar energetic particle events because the ghost proton flux, as you can see, is flatlined. Yeah, profits are all around, exactly. Profits and profits. Like, so many profits deriving profits from fraud. Like, it's quite impressive. You know, our finest days lie ahead, and doomsday prophets, they just lie. So I don't know why that flare, it looked like a double peak to me. Let me go back and look. Let's look at it in 94 angstroms. I guess not. It is a long duration flare, so don't be surprised to see this generate a CME as well. We're going to look at it in 304 angstroms because it's already been a couple of hours since that. So let's check and see if there is additional filamentary material blasting off. Fingers crossed. Cross your fingers. Here it comes, hopefully. Let's see. So there's the flare. It is long duration. Those are the best ones to produce CMEs. But I don't see any plasma motions. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'll play that through one more time for you here. Here comes the flare. So there's the flare. And I see almost nothing associated with that flare. So basically no plasma motions there. It was long duration. Peak flux was only an M1 and a quarter, M1.26. Peak flux was at 9:05 Zulu, which means universal time. Here's the potential field surface source model for the ecliptic plane field plot. And there's a South Pole current sheet making its way toward Earth. Here's our line of sight coronal hole plot. And as you can see, south pole oriented coronal holes rotating in, which will show up well in the 95 angstroms wavelength. So these eastern coronal holes, these are now south pole oriented. These are north pole oriented. And there are still massive filaments, I would remind you. So these are coronal holes, but these are plasma filaments. And we'll get a better view of those here in just a minute. First, some magnetograms. How about El Teide is pretty new, but these are looking like degrading sunspots here. So, interestingly enough, the sunspot number came down and the radio flux came up. Yeah, you can see that. You can see the degradation there. So, let me. I'm going to zoom in here. This is yesterday plus today at El Teide's magnetogram, and oh, great! We can even see the time and date stamp. So there's a great view of that sunspot. You can see the magnetic shear degrading there in that upper right corner of this main umbra here. You're going to see that losing its field disparity there. The magnetic shear is kind of going away in that region. So yeah, it's the likelihood of it producing large flares is actually degrading, at least since yesterday. Alrighty, so here is our red light imagery. So there's red light, and there's the magnetogram. So it's not so good. Not so good. Not what you want to see if you want to see space weather, and we do on the channel because we're not spooked of it, are we? I hope we're not spooked of space weather on this channel. Anyway, besides that, oh, we got some growth up here, so that's pretty sweet. So check it out in the northern hemisphere. We do have some growth up there in this now northwestern portion of the Earth-facing disk. It is a beta-class sunspot group, but it is not likely to produce large flares, at least not yet. So there is a little magnetic shear there, but that's a beta class, a plain beta class sunspot group, not even beta gamma. But it does have potential. So anyway, let's move to hydrogen alpha here. What do we got? We'll stick with El Teide. Here's that massive filament that's blasted off. And let's switch to Udaipur, India, so we can see the blast off. Keep an eye. There it goes. Or should I say, here it comes. So yeah, that was the one that we were talking about naming yesterday. Did somebody name that filament? I don't think so. I didn't see any notifications about it. I spend a lot of time on Twitter debunking people who yell at clouds. Yeah, lots of people, they think I'm paid to teach people junior high level physics. All right, what do we have here? Let me put your chats back on the screen here now that we've showed the blasting off of that filament. That's going to cause a geomagnetic storm here on planet Earth. All right, so if you did want to name filaments, you'd do it over here on Twitter. And let's see if we see anything associated with this. I don't think so. By the way, quit yelling at clouds. Peak ignorance and arrogance of human capability equals, quote, humans are able to control the weather, end quote. Not only can we not control the weather, we can't even forecast it beyond 1 week. The weather, quote, warfare, end quote, dummies do not understand scale nor dew point. Here's a cloud from this morning, right out back. Here's a man-made cloud. It's tiny. It's known as a cumulus homogenetus. And here is a map of a 3,000-mile long storm system. Mankind can't make these. Mankind makes these. these little tiny clouds at places like nuclear cooling towers, and sometimes contrails, which might even form a cloud this big. In the right atmospheric conditions, what mankind can't do is control the weather. Next. Anyway, so yesterday we did suggest naming this one, and it got 32 views. 32 views. So yeah, that's, I mean, Twitter, it's a broken echo chamber for misinformation, science, illiterate, imbecile. All right, so the electron flux is going back into storm levels here. Expect pretty bad GPS performance. The electron flux is measured using radiography from the GOES 19 and GOES 18, where they endeavor to measure the F-flares, ions. It's just the F-flare, folks, measured with radiography from an altitude of like 26,000 miles by the GOES 19 and GOES 18. Here's the coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere, electrodynamics, total electron content forecast. And like I said, expect pretty bad GPS performance, especially between the hours of, say, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., and especially around the equator. The closer to the equator you get, the more free ions there are above, the more ions there are above your head between you and the outer Van Allen belts, which is where your GOES satellites are located, and your GPS satellites. So anyway, here is the deabsorption region predictions, and this is going to show you radio brownouts from that M-class flare. What the hell? Sup with that? Sup with that, folks? Was that not that thing was at 9:05, right? What the hell? Does it not update? Oh, dude, look at that. It's not even there. There is missing data from this radio blackout. Look at that. It goes from 8:42 universal time to 9:50. It's a blackout of a blackout. It's probably more like a brownout. It wasn't only an M1.25 class flare. Let's move on to the ionosphere. We'll show you an animation of it. Now, we were talking about the F layer earlier. The D layer is where space weather begins. Below that is the mesosphere, where Earth's atmosphere is mostly neutral particles. Please load. Thank you. So here's an animation of the ionosphere, courtesy of Australian Government Bureau Meteorology. That's the raw megahertz, millions of vibrations per second. Like the way we used to measure old PCs. You know, I used to have an IBM PS2 Model 25 that vibrated at this same speed. Yeah, 10 megahertz. But this is very diffuse gas in space vibrating at 10 megahertz, not a processor. So while it is a frequency, it has nothing to do with computer chips, except that computer chips are processing the data. Yeah. So again, like I said, we're seeing high electron contents, so expect to see some big gyrations there in the ionosphere, which is what you're seeing. You're seeing all the way up to 14 megahertz. During this calm space weather event, we still do have high electron flux. So it's going to remain high here because there's more space weather coming. So here's the anomaly gram. This is anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. The previous one was just the plain ionosonde. And you can see the South Atlantic anomaly, which is now centered over the western equatorial South American coast. It ain't down here in the Pacific. It ain't over here over the South American continent. It's over the extreme East Pacific, near the equatorial coast of the South American continent. It's called the South Atlantic anomaly, but you can see right where it is. It's super obvious in this imagery. There is also another less considerable weak spot over here on the African equatorial coast. You could call it the African anomaly. I don't know. Maybe there's a name for it. But there's a big divot in the ionosphere right here. And of course, when spacecraft pass through there, they experience charging hazards. Some of them have to shut down when they pass through the South Atlantic anomaly to maintain the integrity of their instruments. Anyway, hopefully your instruments are well maintained and your guitar is in tune, because it's time for us to shift gears to Earth weather. We're going to start talking about crescent Earth. So, you have access to more information than you could possibly need to forecast your own weather. Were you aware of this? And so, you should impress your friends and your foes by augmenting existing meteorologists' weather forecasts for your exact area and say, hey, on our bike ride tomorrow, the wind is going to pick up in the afternoon. So if we head west and then come back in a west to east sort of orientation, we'll have a massive tailwind on the way back as dry mass of air pushes its way from western to eastern Pennsylvania from Canada. Like, that would be a thing. And like, that's part of the reason why I became such a good meteorologist. Yeah, I got that good at forecasting the weather, where in the summertime, the one day, I forecasted the weather so good that I rode over the mountain where I lived at the base of the mountain. I went over the mountain, down the other side of the mountain, about 12 miles, recrossed the mountain, came back. It had rained where I was, but the roads had already dried back out because it was the perfectly timed weather forecast ride. That was when I realized, oh, I can forecast the weather like to the inch practically. And within a year, I was like, I need bigger challenges. Space weather. If you got a 30% margin of error, that's a pretty high margin of error. My weather forecasts don't have a 30% margin of error because I understand enough about atmospheric physics and which instruments to actually use to forecast it. So this is just the visible satellite, and that's why it looks so freaking awesome. But I digress. Here's our water vapor map for, oh wait, did you know that it's almost the equinox? Yeah, we've only got 3 days and 3 hours until the spring equinox, the vernal equinox, or you could say the autumnal equinox, if you live from under the equator. So, we've changed the designs. So, there are some designs that you can no longer get on the Redbubble shop. Today's featured product is the Galactic Federation Special Forces. Are you uninterested in your national military organizations, the UN peacekeeping forces, and everybody else? Are you not interested in the Space Force in any way? Well, perhaps you're a candidate for the Galactic Federation Special Forces. So I would say to each of you, Universum Liberate. Now, if that's too reckless for you, let me explain what that means. It means free everybody. And if you're afraid to free everybody, then, oh, I'm terribly sorry that I suggested warlords should rule your town. Free everybody. If you think that's too reckless, let me explain what the symbolism means. So, the symbolism means a black shield. Yeah, a black shield. And of course, it says Universum Liberate, which means free everybody. And then there's a spiral on it. That represents the Milky Way galaxy. You'll notice a point of light in the upper right of that spiral. That means one of the outer arms of the Milky Way galaxy. The lightning bolt represents instantaneous physical ability to apply kinetic energy. And the key represents signal strength and integrity and security. So that's what the symbolism of the unit patch for the Galactic Federation Special Forces means. And this bright blue star there that's like behind the shield, that's classified. So, but anyway, yeah, that's the Galactic Federation Special Forces products. They're still there. And the Galactic Federation Special Forces is making sure that you're still there. You know, existent and all. Anyway, here's the U.S. water vapor map I promised. I guess I didn't technically promise. But, and by the way, you'll find links in the description to this video, as well as in the comments. I'll link directly for your convenience to the Galactic Federation Special Forces. Right there in the pinned comment. So yeah, the Redbubble products are at ultra high quality. Most of our uploads there are like 10,000 pixels. So if you get like a big thing, like a shower curtain or a duvet cover or a blanket or something like that, you'll be amazed at the quality of the printing. It is abso-smurfly top notch. And keep in mind, folks, I have exacting standards. All right, so let me show you what I mean by top notch. Now, this isn't printed by Vistaprint. I mean, this is printed by Vistaprint. You can't get these anymore because of tariffs. But this isn't by Redbubble, but Redbubble prints of this same quality. Now, look at how small this smashomash.com. See how small those letters are? You see the way you can actually read them? That is tiny. That's just on my sleeve. Look at that. That is a tiny, tiny printing on fabric. Redbubble prints just as good as this. Like if you get the socks, you'll be able to read the stuff on the socks. It's the print quality is absolutely bonkers. Dirk, Bruce is located in Brazil. Brazil, like Blanca on Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition. All right, so yeah, that's a water vapor map, and you can see dry, massive air here coming down with a vengeance of coldness across the Great Lakes. And you can see an atmospheric river here flowing. It's actually forming, so there's some major melt evaporation happening here on the leeward side of the Rockies. That's the eastern portion of the Continental Divide there. You can see it very well illustrated by that water vapor map. Here, I'll show you a closer up view of it, because that is that's a lot of action happening. So you've got orographic lifting, and then you have a pressure decrease on the leeward side of these mountains because the wind keeps blowing regardless of what the water vapor does. And so there's a lot of stuff at play there, and orographic lifting is a huge part of that. But anyway, here's the full map, and yeah, some bands of dry, massive air here sandwiching some moisture in the Gulf, and dry air moving southward from Nevada into New Mexico. Continuing right along to the U.S. Doppler radar map. Now this shows vertical motion in the air column like water droplets and ice crystals. Think sleet, snow, and rain. Also fog if it's on the move. But lake effect snow littering the area east of the Mississippi. Look at that. That's a perfect lake effect snow right there. Now, folks, lakes speed up the wind. So the wind, when it blows over the land, it's kind of blowing all over the place because of all the variations in the land. But when it gets to water, it accelerates because now it can all flow in the same direction, and its laminar characteristics become a big deal. And yeah, so lake effect snow, you get once again you get a pressure change happening as a result of those wind variations. And yo, it's looking windy up there. It's looking windy on the Great Lakes. We'll show you a wind map momentarily. First, a forecast for our local viewers. Shout out to viewers from the Lehigh Valley. That's where we're located, by the way, which is in eastern Pennsylvania. We're almost in smelling distance of New Jersey from here. Like if the wind blew from the east all day, we might be able to smell New Jersey, and that would be to the dismay of most Pennsylvanians, I suspect. However, here's the forecast for Lehigh Valley. Today, a high near 36. Kind of windy with gusts as high as 35 miles an hour. Tonight a low of 22. So getting back to winter-like conditions here as spring arrives. And March goes out like a lion. And it came in like a lamb. So there you go. The old adage rang true this time. Tomorrow a high near 39. Thursday a high near 48. Friday, the forecast is holding here for Friday with a high near 53 on the forecast high. So now we're looking at dew points, but we're going to switch this to wind. So there is the wind map, and as you can see, very windy, especially over Superior. 37 mile per hour winds, folks. That is sustained wind speeds. Also over Huron, also southern Lake Erie, and also Lake Michigan. So that is that looks pretty harsh. And look at the waves. It's surf's up. Surf is up, folks. Green Bay, if anybody's surfing Green Bay, you got an offshore wind right now. So anybody surfing in Marquette, you got 14-foot waves. Looks like dry suit weather for me. Let us know in the comments if you've ever surfed a dry suit. I'm just reading the comments here. Yeah, the Great Lakes are looking a little bit dangerous for all of you mariners out there. Moving right along. Hopefully shipping is improving, especially in certain places like the Gulf of Hormuz and of course the Persian Gulf. Let's don't forget about the Gulf of Aden. I mean, what could possibly go wrong if global shipping gets, completely annihilated? What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, here's a lightning map from lightningmaps.org. We do have some offshore lightning. But we ain't got no terrestrial lightning, so I can't say to anybody in the U.S. that there's thunder rolling in. What do we got? What do we got? Some thunder at a place. Asa Uirda or something. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm just a son of a bit turn like that. I don't know how to pronounce anything. All right, what do we have here? I see more comments. What do we have? What do we have? AI cameras, yada, yada, yada. AI, the most misbranded thing in history. Absolutely idiotic. Absolutely imbecile. Yes, Bruce, all superheroes, people think superheroes are aliens. That's, sorry about that. Remember, Bruce, the first rule of Batman is don't tell people on YouTube comments that you're Batman. All right. Although maybe it's because you're biologically half bat. Hoping not. If you are able to fly, please start a YouTube channel. Bruce, please start a YouTube channel. You would be a great YouTube personality. And you type great English. It's insurance, bro. Leave it to the big boys above our pay grade. I don't have a pay grade, dude. My pay grade is 3 million euros per year. That's my pay grade. All right, so let's look at some weather forecasts. We're going to show you forecasts for the U.S. and maybe I'll put something up that I don't normally put up today. Some forecasts that I don't usually show because I'm going to show the jet stream forecast today. So there's the current state of jet streams. But let's actually show some forecasts for it here at tropicaltidbits.com. Upper dynamics. We're going to look at the 250 millibar winds. Since we have a major jet stream kink and very cold air making it really far south, let's show people why to increase the probability that you too will be able to forecast your own weather We certainly hope you're able to. But there you can see the jet stream in a massive, massive upper level low right here. Just kind of rolling its way across there, rotating the wrong way. And yeah, that's going to have some effects on some weather here in the coming days. But it's going to give us a respite. We're going to get some warm temperatures coming here in a few days to the Boston, D.C. corridor. All right, so let's look at total accumulated precip. And please load the thing. Thank you very much. We'll look at total accumulated precip and total positive snow depth change in inches. Sound good? It's a rhetorical question, as this is a space and earth weather dictatorship. Unlike some channels, which are a space weather dictatorship. Big difference. All right, so there's the jet stream activity. You'll probably be able to see the way this relates to the precip activity. So let's go to that one. 72-hour GFS total accumulated precip forecast, and look at the rains coming to Washington. 6 more inches coming your way. Coastal Washington especially, but also some inland rains. Please heed your local flood forecasts and have your kayak ready to be demoored. Positive accumulated snow depth change is the last forecast we'll show. Once again, the GFS 72-hour model. A little bit more snow coming here to the northeastern part of the U.S. and north central. Anyway, here are the current jet streams. Surface winds looking like this. Surface winds of the eastern world looking like this as a tropical cyclone forms here southeast of Indonesia. Your jet streams on this side of the planet. Shout out to our viewers from the east side. East side. Shout out to our viewers from Africa, the Near East, and Europe. There are your jet streams. And here are your surface winds. That's what's going on. It's time to cut back to the closest star. Like so. And how about some 284 angstroms? We rarely look at it. I think it's a good day to look at it. So, yeah, I figured I would talk today about cause and effect. You know, cause and effect. Accountability, it always comes for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, folks. Accountability comes, and, like, it's still coming for a lot of folks. It's still coming because here's the biggest cause and effect to understand. When you cash in your credibility, you've caused your credibility to evaporate. If you start saying things that aren't true and then doubling down and quadrupling down and octupling down on them, the effect of the cause will be that people don't believe the things that you say. So you can cash in your credibility, but it better be for a lot of money. It better be for Joe Rogan level money, because if you ain't got FU funds, then you better not cash in your credibility. Like, what can I say? Like, these are basic facts. If you've been offended by these basic facts, we are terribly sorry here at the Smash News Network, Least Busted Name and News, but we would encourage you to pay attention to facts and to ignore fraud. Fraud, the misrepresentation of material facts, intentionally. You see? So, I mean, misrepresentation isn't good. When you tell people stuff that isn't true and you did it by accident, that's a type of misrepresentation that isn't fraud. If you, like, get out ahead of your nonsense when you fail and you go, hey, I screwed up. Here's what happened. Here's the reality. I've grown as a person and learned from being absolutely wrong. If that happens, it's usually not that big of a deal. That's what any reputable news organization does. They print a retraction or they video a retraction, right? Frauds, they octuple down on their fraud forever until they grift enough that they're retired. And then they go live in a bunker and they make fun of you for years. Hey, Molly Miller 6608. Thanks for dropping by and leaving a comment. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to press the subscribe button. Otherwise, you may not see the world's most comprehensive daily space weather delivered directly to your YouTube subscription feed. And your YouTube subscription feed might be full of crap about space weather. Shout out to Tamitha Scove. She doesn't produce crap about space weather, but she also doesn't do daily space weather videos. So there's that. And yeah, we do actually endorse that channel. I sort of consider Tamitha a friend by this point. I mean, we've known each other for years, and I used to make fun of her a little bit back when she had less subs than our channel did. But she handled it well enough to gain some respect, because Tamitha Scove isn't just smart, she's also funny. So, yeah, Tamitha Scove is fantastic. So, shout out to her, somebody who does actual space weather forecasts, just like us. And that's where we're going to close this thing out. So thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off, and until next time, may that solar wind be at your back, and that nonsense absent from your YouTube feed.
Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted name in news.
Yeah, keep the fire burning, Bruce. Keep the fire burning. What is that? Isn't that a Kenny Loggins song? There's like some kind of Kenny Loggins song, Keep the Fire Burning or something. If you've never seen the Yacht Rock series, there's a great series about real rock and roll history in a YouTube series called Yacht Rock. You should definitely check it out if you've never seen it. Now, I hated Yacht Rock. That smooth music crap, like when I was a young kid, that was the least cool thing ever. And I absolutely hated it. Like, I hated Steely Dan, I hated Air Supply. I'm a little more neutral on those bands now, but back then, I hated those bands and the entire genre of ultra smooth, what we now call yacht rock. So yeah, like I remember going out of my way when I was like 6 years old and saying, "Who's that band?" And they said Air Supply. And I said, "Ew, I hate that band." Like, that was long before Creed existed, folks. I guess I'm dating myself now. But I digress. We'll let that play through one more time. That shows about 12 hours of the closest star in ionized helium. So that's extreme ultraviolet light. So a little higher frequency than visible to the naked eye. Not visible from the ground, also, by the way. The extreme ultraviolet spectra do not make it to the ground. So that's why we use spacecraft to view the sun in these spectra, because these spectra don't make it to the ground. They're filtered out by the time you reach the ionosphere, actually. So, you know, you got to have a spacecraft quite high up to see 304 angstroms. So, but it is depicting ionized helium, and it's that's what's up. So see you soon, and maybe some more content coming out later today.